New Year's Eve is supposed to feel hopeful, a new beginning, but not all New Year's nights are filled with joy. Some carry dark secrets that follow you into the next year. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 terrifying tales of New Year's Eve horrors. If you hear something behind you, don't turn around. Just keep listening. It was a quiet New Year's Eve, one of those rare nights when everything seems still, as if the world is waiting for the clock to strike midnight. But for Carla, it wasn't quiet. It was the night her life would change forever, even though she didn't know it yet. Carla had just moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of town. It was her first New Year's in this new place, alone. Her family was far away, and she hadn't made many friends yet, so she decided to spend the evening watching the countdown on TV, hoping the noise would make her feel less alone. At 11:55 p.m., there was a knock at her door. She froze. No one should be there. She wasn't expecting anyone, and the hallway outside her apartment was always silent at night. The knocking persisted. She hesitated, her heart beating faster, but then opened the door, thinking it might be a neighbor. To her surprise, a man stood there, wearing a dark coat and a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed his face. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said quietly. "I'm just passing through, and I noticed your light on." Before Carla could respond, he stepped inside, brushing past her without asking, his presence filling the small room. Confused but too polite to stop him, she let him stay for a drink. Something about the man felt off. He kept staring at the clock, his hands trembling slightly, as if he was afraid of what would happen when midnight arrived. As the countdown hit midnight, the man stood up, his eyes wide. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Then he suddenly bolted out of the apartment and disappeared into the night. Carla was left in shock. She checked her door. It was locked. She checked the hallway outside. There was no one. But when she turned around, the TV showed an image of the man, his face on the news. He was wanted for violent robberies and had been missing for years. The strangest part? That apartment had been locked for months before Carla moved in. The last tenant had been murdered. No one should have been able to knock on her door, and yet someone had. New Year's Eve was supposed to be a fresh start, but for James and his friends, it became something far darker. They rented a cabin in the woods to escape the city and welcome the new year in silence. No distractions, just friends, snow, and a fire that barely warmed the cold air inside. At 11:50 p.m., they started the countdown together. The room was full of laughter and music, but something felt wrong. It was too quiet outside. The storm had passed hours ago, and the world felt frozen, like it was holding its breath. As they reached the final countdown, the lights flickered, and then the power went out. They laughed, thinking it was part of the cabin's charm, even though none of them really believed it. Then they heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate steps on the second floor. The problem? No one was up there. As knocking started from the ceiling above them, the laughter stopped. The sound was too real, too close to ignore. They stayed together until morning, barely speaking, afraid that any sound might bring the footsteps back. At sunrise, they packed and left. As they drove away, one of the friends glanced back. The lights were still on, and someone was standing in the window, watching them without moving. It was a busy New Year's Eve at a small bar in the city. The countdown played on the big screen, and everyone was celebrating. But for one bartender, the night would become a nightmare she would never forget. Clara had worked at the bar for years. She loved the festive atmosphere. But this year, something felt different, heavier, like a warning she couldn't explain. The bar was packed, but one man stood out. He sat alone, staring at the screen, barely blinking. As the clock hit 11:59 p.m., the man turned to Clara and said, "I need to tell you something. I'm not supposed to be here." She laughed nervously, thinking he was drunk, but as the final seconds ticked down, he stood up and walked out. No one noticed him leave. At midnight, the bar erupted in cheers. Clara's phone rang. It was the police. The man, they said, had been missing for over 20 years, a suspect in unsolved murders. The strange part? He had walked into the bar just 30 minutes before midnight, as if he had stepped out of another time. The mystery was never solved, and the man was never found again. Some nights don't just end when the clock strikes midnight. Some things never leave, and for others, the worst is yet to come. If you want more true-style horror stories like these, stay close. ShadowPulse is just getting started.